I want to be really short and snappy, and I don't want to get zoomed to death. So I thought we would just crack straight on, if that's okay. So, John, why don't you tell us again? Just so grateful to have you here. Grateful for your friendship as well, and just for your gift to the church. Yeah, and why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do, but also just a little bit about where East Cobb is at the moment, because you're in quite an interesting time, right?
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So I have been on staff with one of the North Point campuses for, I guess, 10 years. So I started at Brownsbridge Church, which is like up in the northern part of Georgia. And then and all the time I've been there or been part of North Point, I've been doing worship and production on the service programming team. So I don't know how y'all's or everything is labeled at your churches, but basically where I am, it's service programming is just worship and production. So I lead worship regularly. I lead production teams regularly, lead creative meetings and all that sort of stuff. 3 years ago, actually, I left Brownsbridge and we moved down a little bit closer to the city. We're just outside of the 285 perimeter. And we live in an area called East Cobb, which is the eastern part of a county, and it's very, very dense with people. And we started a new North Point campus 3 years ago. So we launched in January of 2020. We met for 8 weeks and then we shut down for the pandemic. So we only had 8 weeks of in-person meeting. But it was crazy because the church just continued to grow and we did online stuff and it was amazing. A lot of learning and figuring it out. And so for the last 2 years, we've been meeting at, I'm sorry if that's me dinging. For the last 2 years, we've been meeting at another church called East Side Baptist Church. They've just been letting us use their facility. We rent it. We have a lot of stuff that we leave there every week, and then a lot of stuff we have to just pack into closets and cars. So we meet at 4:00 in the afternoon. But just this past Sunday, we moved out of that church and we're in the process of moving to a school, and we're going to be a completely set up tear down in a high school so that we can move to Sunday mornings, which will be awesome and awful. I don't know if any of y'all do set up tear down church, but that's what we're about to get into. So the last couple of days I've been driving a box truck around and picking up road cases from different places, and my team is just packing things, and it's a lot, but we're very excited about it because we want to be on Sunday mornings. We find a lot of value in meeting on Sunday mornings around here versus meeting in the evenings, in the afternoons. It just is not great. The majority of the people that we're reaching have kids, it's families, and it's just not an ideal time to come to church. So getting to Sunday mornings will be really, really good for us. And in the process of that, we're building a building, but we're 2 to 3 years away from getting into that building. So we're going to do a 2-year lease with the school and just tough it out for 2 years and hope for the best. So
right.
We launch November 12th. So, I mean, we're going to do the next 3 Sundays of basically rehearsal and setup and practice and teach volunteers how to put pipe and drape walls together and all that sort of stuff. And then we'll start November 12th. So
yeah, I'm right there with you. That's one of the reasons why I so value our conversations, is because we're set up and tear down. And yeah, well, let's just say I'm praying for you. Especially in the morning. How many, just by show of hands, how many have got their own building? How many are set up and tear down? So yeah, so you guys.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like that might be, well, Leon's multi-site and got some and does some, and we'll be praying for you in that time, for sure. And again, just so value you being here when you've got all of that going on. I definitely think we should do a call another time about set up and tear down, because that's a whole other thing, right?
We're learning a lot.
Kids and adults and everything.
Yeah, it's thankfully our setup is a little like we negotiated the rent that we're paying with the school by by investing a little bit of money so that we could make it easier for us and better for them. So we did put a little bit of money into, like, we hung a new PA for them. And we're basically meeting a gym that also has a stage. So as far as like our production setup, it's not crazy because the sound system is kind of already hung, and then we just roll a soundboard in and stuff like that. But the rest of it is, everything else is obviously like set up and on a box truck. So
that's the same for us. We were like, how about we bless this community center with a brand new PA, and then it actually just works for us. But let's talk about Christmas. So some of us will be, just to explain where some of us are in this journey, is like, so some of us will have been putting a lot of effort into Christmas services historically. It will be the highlight of the year. They'll start prepping as soon as Easter Sunday is over. It'll be on to Christmas. And some people will just be like, hey, why is Christmas important? Like, sometimes we have the school come down for an assembly, but that's about as far as it goes. So can you talk us through some of like the history of maybe, or how you've been involved at North Point, but also Brownsbridge and then East Cobb, and why you put an emphasis on Christmas and how that works for you guys?
Full transparency for East Cobb Church. And if you are in this position, just know that we are too. We have not thought about Christmas at all. Like, other than we're actually right now trying to decide whether or not we should do Christmas, because Christmas Eve is on a Sunday.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure out if we should do morning services like we normally would, or if we should do an evening Christmas Eve service like we have in the past. Or if we should do both, or if we should do Saturday. And a lot of the campuses around here are kind of doing a mix and match of that. We've actually found a lot of great success in doing Sunday or morning services, even if Christmas Eve is on a Saturday or a Monday or whatever it is, instead of trying to do an evening service. There are some churches around here that have good success with Christmas Eve. I love Christmas Eve at night. Like, I love going to church in the evening and like doing the whole thing. But I think, I don't know, we've had good success with it, and we've also seen really good success. We're also trying to figure out, should we offer childcare, like kids ministry? There's something really valuable about, as a church plant, we had to find different venues to do our Christmas services the last couple of years because we couldn't use the church that we were meeting at. And so we've kind of done them. We've done them outside, and we've done them in two different venues. One we did last year was really cool. It was at the Coca-Cola Roxy, which is a big theater downtown. But anyway, we haven't had a way to do kids ministry. And so now we're like trying to figure out, okay, well, now we can do kids ministry. Should we do kids ministry? Because Christmas is actually one of the only times that we can do multi-generational worship. Like, everybody's family comes together and sits together and does the whole thing. And so we're trying to figure out like what's the best option. So that's kind of where we are with it. We know that Christmas, and I mean, y'all know this too, Christmas is very, very important because and Easter, but Christmas especially, because people are kind of emotionally prepped for, hey, it's the traditional thing to do. We should go to church. We should hear the Christmas story. We should, it's kind of one of those things that's just baked into a culture typically, where let's do something for Christmas. So as a church, we want to be ready to receive those people who are like, we have never been here, or we only come once a year. And we want them to feel like it's like, that they're at home, that it doesn't feel awkward or weird or abnormal to them. We want it to be a really good experience, which is why I find that in the past, and there again, as far as North Point goes, the campuses, for Christmas, we typically are autonomous, and everybody kind of does their own thing. Every campus kind of does their own thing. We share ideas and we talk about things together, but I guess it was probably 4 or 5 years ago that we stopped just for Christmas doing like the same exact thing together. And it's because so many people have different opinions about what we should do for Christmas. There are some people that are like, hey, let's go all out and have drummers zip lining down the, that wasn't us. That was another church.
I said that video though.
Yeah. It wasn't us. But they're like, hey, how, like, there's some campuses are like, how much production can we do? It's a big thing. Let's like blow it out and make it awesome. And then there are some campuses, and this is the camp that I'm in, that's like, hey, I kind of want to make it very traditional, not very traditional. I want to lean more classy. Like I want to lean more traditional. I want to lean, because I'm expecting people to show up that it's like, yeah, they know a lot of Christmas carols and Christmas songs from their childhood or whatever, because they've been going to church once a year, every year since they were a kid. And I don't want to like hit them with a bunch of new like Christmas songs that they don't know. I get them one time, I get these people in the room one time. So can I meet them where they are and do things in a way that maybe they've never seen or experienced, as far as like the level of production, the quality of what we're doing, but really more than that, the hospitality that they find when they walk in, the feeling of like being that they belong there, having never been there or haven't been there in a long time. So that's kind of my goal with it. And that's why, yeah. So anyway, as far as campuses go, some of the campuses have already, of course, started like thinking about what are we going to do for Christmas. North Point Community Church specifically, the last, I guess they've done 3. They had huge success with this big outdoor Christmas tree lighting. So they basically had this big Christmas tree, and then they did it during the pandemic because they couldn't meet inside. And so they bought this big LED Christmas tree and built a stage around it, and did the whole thing with a band and all that. And they had thousands of people come to it. It was amazing. And they did it 3 years in a row. And then and so that's what they basically put a lot of their effort into. They would do it like early to mid-December. And then their Christmas Eve service would be more of like just kind of a traditional standard candlelight, service, a lot more basic, not a huge production. Sadly, the Christmas tree, the LED Christmas tree at North Point, the weather got it last year. The wind knocked it down, and it is destroyed. So it's all right. It's an insurance claim. The insurance company took care of it, and they're not buying another one. So
that's that idea out the window. I think we'd very much struggle to do anything outside in the UK, especially where churches, where it gets very, very rainy in the Midlands. But I love what you're saying about that traditional or classy aspect. And as someone that leads worship, and I know you do at Christmas as well, something I really struggle with is like, how do I capture that traditional element and give people something where they're like, right, I've gone to church, I've sung my carols, that's the start of Christmas for me. But also like do something that's really us, and do something that doesn't sound totally different to the Sunday before and the Sunday where hopefully they come back in the new year. How do you wrestle with that tension? Where do you land on it? Yeah,
I mean, I think that's it. It is really hard. But here's what's funny is I kind of do the same. I almost would say I do the same Christmas thing every year. And it's tough because as a creative and as someone who leads worship and all that, like I want to do new things. I want to try new things. I want to like, how can we make this different? But I really believe in this is just my opinion, that people who come for Christmas want what they know, right? Like they want what they expect it to be something familiar. And I don't think that anybody in our congregation would remember what we did last year. Like, you know what I mean? Like, unless we did some big thing that maybe as like to open the service or a special song or a moment or projection map the room or something like that, they might remember that, but they probably wouldn't even remember what song we did with it or, what creative element we had attached to it. So I kind of lean into like, again, I want it to be familiar. I want people to immediately be able to connect with it. And so, but then obviously like trying to make it sound and feel like what it would feel like the next Sunday. which is tough with Christmas songs, because Christmas songs, a lot of them are not singable.
Mm.
It's hard to, put a band behind them. And so when I find versions of songs that I think work well, I just reuse them often. And so, for example, the Hillsong, I think it was Peace. It's a red record. It's a red album cover with a dove on it. Hold on, look it up real quick.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Peace Project or something like
Peace
that.
Project. Yeah. So they have on that album their version of Joy to the World,
Yeah.
Oh Come On Faithful, and even Oh Holy Night. It's kind of a cool version of A Holy Night. They're all done really, really well. Like, they're so well done production wise with a band that we do those versions like every year, because it's like, yeah, this is what it would sound like on a Sunday if you came another time. We're just going to make it, feel, it's going to have a Christmas flair to it. I also am not opposed to doing a like just one or two normal, like kind of standard rotation worship songs in the midst of a Christmas set. I think it's cool to just sing like something that is really familiar as far as worship goes, that and maybe you can change the instrumentation of it. We've done this before where it's like we had a guy one year playing like a hammered dulcimer, which is not normal for us. We would never not normally do that, but we did it for this like one thing we did for a Christmas song, and we had that same sound on a couple of the worship songs. Like, he played on a couple of worship songs, so that kind of, it sounded like Christmas, kind of sprinkled into some of these worship songs, which was cool. And that's just, trying to make it feel Christmassy without being over the top. But I'm just not a big, like, I personally am not like a big neon Christmas trees, LED, like everything's real flashy. I really lean, personally for me, really traditional with like, I like things I like green, and I like incandescent lighting, like warm orange lighting, and for things to feel really traditional. So some of the things that we try to do in our Christmas services, we love doing candle lighting. Like, and the way we do candle lighting, we typically have people light a candle if they've, like, our pastor would kind of walk through some things that might have happened. So it's like, hey, if you like if you put your faith in Jesus this year, like, it's almost like a way to memorialize or remember things that have happened. So you'll see people light their candles. The reason we do it that way is, or we started doing it that way, instead of just lighting, everybody light the row, light down the road, I don't know, because we have kids in the room. And actually the venue that we were at last year, we couldn't use real candles. We had to use battery operated candles, which they actually look awesome, but it's kind of lame to like, all right, everybody get out your candle and like turn it on. Like, what is the point of this? So what was cool, we tried to make it cool by turning all the lights off. And our pastor basically walked through like all of these things, the way that we've seen God move. So, we talked about like, hey, if you've been praying for something and you saw God answer a prayer this year, like, light your candle. And so you basically, like, the funnel got wider as he asked more and more questions. So it started really narrow, and you might have seen like 2 or 3 candles, 4 or 5, 10, 20. And then like the bigger the questions, eventually he's asking, questions that anybody would light their candle for. So it was cool because you kind of saw the glow kind of like,
so good,
grow over time. So we love candle lighting because it's something that if a person came to our church and they've been to a Baptist church or a Catholic church or something like that, like, they've seen that, they've experienced it before. And we just want to like kind of make it feel like this is normal for them, but we're going to try to do it in a way that makes it's not just, we're not just lighting a candle. We're going to like light a candle for a purpose. And here's the purpose. We're going to explain it. And like anything we do on stage, with our words, we're always talking to both audiences. We're talking to the group of people that are bought in and are believers and followers of Jesus and been coming to church forever, and they get it. And we're talking at the same time to the people who are, you know, as far away from God as you can imagine and don't care. And they're just there because they got dragged to
Yeah.
church for whatever reason. So,
Yeah. So
yeah.
we did something similar with the candles. We did like an audience participation voting thing. So
Oh,
you
cool.
actually like cast a vote by lighting your candle up, because I think secretly all we want is for our Christmas services to look like a Coldplay concert, but we just can't afford the wristbands, you know.
Yeah.
And the other thing as well is that you mentioned the Peace project. One thing we've really lent into is the Jeremy Riddle versions of some of the carols, which have
Okay.
just been really really us. And it's yeah, basically I just try and not touch the melody, because people like knowing the melody, but the instrumentation, you know, trying to put drums behind some of these carols is difficult, and
Yeah.
he's done a really good job. Before we just open it up, I hope you're okay to take some questions, John. And
Oh, yeah.
that would be really good. For me, there have been maybe 2 times at the Forge in my role here where I thought we nailed that Christmas service. You know, it wasn't perfect, but I felt like we did a really good job. The numbers were exceeded our expectations. All the tech worked. Even the drummer was on time. You know, everyone was in the right place, doing the right thing. It sounded great. It looked great. But so what? You know, what do you do at East Cobb? Like, what's your thinking? What are you pushing at Christmas? Because we always have this debate. So we'll always try and make something the January series really practical, really practical. And we try and run an alpha course over here. I forget what yours is. Sorry, the like new to faith sort of stuff.
Oh, like
Point.
Yeah.
So we'll try and do one of those things. But I wonder what you do to, you know, if you've done all of these things, you've created the most amazing experience with people, they love it. How are you getting them back in January?
Yeah. It's, you know, yeah, trying to hook them in, I think, with a catchy like series or something is really valuable. I think it's tough because we typically take the first Sunday of the year off, depending on when New Year's falls. So it's like we'll have Christmas Eve and then we'll be off for 2 Sundays typically, and then we meet back up. And I think somewhere in that Christmas Eve service, if you're able to invite them back. And so this is where I go back and forth with kids ministry, for example. A lot of people, if they have kids, will come back to church if their kids had a great time, right? So like if their kids are having a great time, and the kids are the ones that'll be like, hey, I loved it, let's go back, right? The parents are more willing to come back to church because they want to do it for their kids. For Christmas, I go back and forth of, do we create a great kids environment for the kids to have like this amazing time in kids ministry, or do I value the multi-generational worship thing that we have once a year when all of the families come? And when we've done it at, you know, East Cobb, again, we've always done it. We've never been able to offer kids ministry. We just make our service feel really good for kids as well. Like, so we only, you know, we try to only have an hour long, if not less than that service. We give all of the kids, when they come in, they get a bag. And this is kind of one of those things that we use as a marketing tool, but in the bag, there's like little fidget things and crayons and paper and stuff to keep them, you know, motivated and engaged for the next hour and quiet. There will be, we'll put like little snacks in there or whatever for them, just, you know, again, so parents don't have to freak out about my kids making noise and whatever. But we'll also put like cards, like advertisement stuff in there. So like for kids ministry, hey, be back here in January for whatever. And we try to, like, whatever the kids ministry thing is that's happening, we try to make it more than just like a normal Sunday in January. And they're probably on the back of that card would be something about the new series that we're going to be doing, we're going to be starting or whatever. So we try to like advertise with these gift bags, and every kid would get one when they walk in. And hopefully a parent would see, you know, some of the stuff that's inside of them. So we try to market through the kids a lot. And that's a lot because of our, you know, where we are. There's just like, I would say 90% of the people that come to our church have kids. So it's like, you just have this like really, you know, easy in to go that way. But yeah, I mean, trying to, I think people want to come back to something that they enjoyed. And so again, if you are creating a service that they feel like they can connect to and participate in, and they don't feel left behind. So even if you're doing something new or different or whatever, as long as you're like continually with your language, like bringing people along, and inviting and like basically carrying them along on the journey that you're taking them on, checking in with them and making sure that they're coming along with you, by explaining, hey, we're going to light candles and here's why we light candles, or hey, we're going to take the Lord's Supper and here's what the Lord's like, explaining all the details of what that is and what it means and why we do it. And then beyond that, it's the hospitality that they experience in the hallways. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say to me, yeah, I went to this church and no one ever even said hey to me. Like I made it all the way into the auditorium before I saw another person. Like no one was greeting me at the door. Like, so for me, it's like, man, if I can, from the parking lot, if I can make people feel like I was planning on them being here, I'm excited for them to be here. We will in the parking lot, we will have parking volunteers dressed up in, you know, reindeer costumes and stuff like that. We've even toyed with having Santa there just for fun. Like, I don't know, like whatever. We have done, we've done a one of those like little trains that you can like that you see like at the mall or something like that. We've done that before, where it's like it just is constantly riding around in the parking lot, and as people park their cars and their kids to get in, it's like, oh, we could ride the train down to the door. It like stuff like that. We're just trying to make everything feel as fun and engaging as possible. I think that is the thing. I think that's the hook that makes them want to come back. So then the goal is, when we hit January, are they walking into like a bland, boring building, bland, boring service? And is it like we haven't really put any creative effort into it? So that's kind of the key for me, is as much effort as I put into Christmas, I think is actually the easier thing to plan. I think then if we can look ahead and go, well, what are we doing for January? Because when we get to Christmas, my brain and my whole life just shuts down, and I want to be at home with my family and I don't want to be thinking creatively. So how much ahead of the game can I be so I'm ready on January 2nd or 3rd or whatever that first Sunday is, to where I know I have a good plan in place, that there's some creative elements that we're going to do. There's coffee that we're going to serve. There's hot chocolate, whatever it is, to make that same experience that they had at Christmas, that they have that same kind of feeling on Sunday morning on January 1st. So as much creative effort as we put into Christmas, we should be putting that amount into January too.
Yeah, I super struggle with that, and I don't know if the guys on here can relate as well. Like, I think the first Sunday is New Year's Day, right, this year, and then the second one is obviously the week after. So it's like, how do I get volunteers in the know? How do I know what the plan is? How do I even put any kind of effort or get my head into that, when you want it to be a huge, as you say, if you're putting as much effort into January, I mean, maybe we need to sacrifice a little of what we're doing at Christmas and able to be able to do those things in January. But that's super tough. Just one thing as well, that something that we do is that we actually ticket our Christmas services. So it's totally free, but we ticket it, and that means that we've got everyone's email address, and we can remarket that for our whether that's a Facebook ad or whether that is yeah, a literal email invitation, depending on their preferences. But that's just another thing that we always argue about, like, oh, should we ticket this because that feels like an obstacle? But actually, it never is an obstacle when people sign up, and then we've got their email addresses that we can do stuff with. So thanks so much, John. I would love to just open it up to the floor. Has anyone got a question about anything that was spoken about? Let me just have a little look. Everyone's looking. Leon's going to ask a question. Leon, can you share a little bit about what you guys are up to this year? Would you mind?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no problem. Yeah. Yeah, thanks, John. So I resonate with so much of what John was saying, really. I think the tension always is, you know, people come because they want something traditional, familiar, recognizable. We're caught in that quandary. Maybe our situation in the UK is a little different from Georgia as well, just culturally, you know, about do we want to just pander to that, or do we want to, you know, go, do you know what I mean, do something very different to that? I think for us, I suppose, because our kind of heart is creative arts as well, so we'll push a little bit more into that, but we like to try and put something that is very familiar and accessible. One of the things we've said this year is that we felt some of the last couple of years our carol singing wasn't too accessible. It was great performance wise, but wasn't too accessible for people, so we want to push into that a little bit more. I really like what you said about, actually the reality is, you know, we have a conversation with, oh no, we did that 3 years ago, oh no, we did that 6 years ago. The reality is nobody knows, nobody remembers. And I do wonder whether that will take a lot of pressure off us as well, and off our teams, to say, actually, rather than can we come up with 15 brand new creative pieces this Christmas, do you know what I mean? Can we come up with 3 or 4, and can we repeat some stuff or remix some stuff? I think that could take some pressure off us with limited time and resources. So yeah, I think the other thing for us is we try to try and see if we can broaden the appeal as well, and the more different people we can get involved if we're able to. So sometimes we'll do a kids choir, sometimes a big choir, sometimes a dance group, you know, sometimes a bit of drama. You then key into other people's networks, all their family and friends, you know, come along to see, you know, because they're in the kids choir. Do you know what I mean? Or something like that. It's a lot of work. But actually, I think it can really bring benefits as well. I think for us, the crucial thing is the ask. What are we inviting them to as the next step? And the other thing, I loved what you said, John, about that moment of response. You know, we've done some things creatively with candles, with other things, which actually are very powerful for people who are unchurched as well. You know, I remember seeing hundreds of people lighting a candle, you know, who aren't church people, but it was a very meaningful moment to them, and a spiritual moment as well. So yeah, some really good stuff in that.
Right. Thanks, Leon. Appreciate you. So good. And do you ticket your production? Do you
yeah, we do now. Yeah, I mean, we used to ticket a free ticket, but we were finding so many people were not coming, and then we said we were sold out, and then we weren't. We ticket, but it's very cheap. It's like £3 a ticket or something, which adds a little value to it. And then the money that comes in usually goes to our charity appeal. So that's the other thing that we're not trying necessarily to, we're not making money, you know, but we are giving money. So, and people don't mind that. We used to have free tickets and take like an offering to go to a charity, but we found the ticket thing, knowing that the proceeds for this are going to this worthwhile cause. Actually, people who are unchurched people don't mind that. They expect that.
Yeah, Christmas is the perfect time to give money away. Like, people
absolutely.
Are very, we do, so we don't ticket, but we do RSVP. So like, we're just basically, hey, sign up. We'd love for you to let us know. So and the way we word it is so we can be prepared for you. We can be ready for you. And this is crazy. This is like the statistic is mind blowing to me. At all 8 of our campuses, it is so, because we RSVP for lots of stuff, it is almost exactly 30% no-show rate on your RSVP. So 30% of the people that RSVP are not going to come. Like, that's just bottom line. Like, it is mind-blowing to me how, like, of the hundreds and hundreds of events that we've done at all of our campuses, how we've been able to zero in, and it's like it like I could look at all these events that we've done at East Cobb and go, oh my gosh, yep, it was 32% didn't show up, or 29%. It's like right in that window. It's crazy. So, which is really helpful to know, because then you go, yeah, like we have a ticketed thing. We're getting we're getting their information. We're getting their emails. We're getting what we need. And a lot of people are subscribing for events. So even if they don't show up, we're still getting what we need to communicate with them. So
yeah, so good. Aaron, did you have a question? But sorry, I saw your hand up, but I don't know if you were just agreeing with Pastor, you know.
No, it went up and went down. So what we're trying to do this year with the Christmas. So I got in touch with, so we're in a little town in Hertfordshire, St. Albans. So what I did was get in touch with the St. Albans Community Choir. And so we're in conversations at the moment. So we're just going to do something. So our church building is at the mall. So we're looking at doing something together. Come half an hour, do a rehearsal with a community choir and go down and sing at the mall together, that kind of thing. Just keeping it simple.
So good. So like community focused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good. So good. And what about you, Dan? You got a question, bud?
Yeah, hi John. Thank you so much for how you've shared. We really appreciate it. So I'm at Leon's church as well. So you say that you've got both kids and adults in your services. I think we've always found that there's been a bit of a tension there, where it's like if you're pitching too much to kids, it's almost like the service isn't relevant enough for parents. But I mean, people who don't have kids, and there will be a lot of people in our services that don't have kids.
Yep.
And so how are you managing that tension? Because also sometimes, you know, we might through media pieces share stories of testimonies of what's happened in people's lives, and in those testimonies there's, you know, the stories that might not be great for kids to hear. I think this, like, I totally understand what you say. I settled in a church when I was younger because I remember going to my parents and saying I loved it here, and that helped my parents make a decision on what church they were going to. They wanted to come back. But what content are you doing to engage people without children and families and, you know, children?
I would say that it's still it would still very much be like focused on adults. We're just aware that children are in the room, right? So to your point, like if we wanted to do some sort of testimony thing, we wouldn't, you know, we may not do that because we're worried that like some of the videos might have like, you know, content in it that a kid can't hear. So that may change our programming. It's such a tension for me because I think what the kids can experience in kids ministry, like in their environment, would be awesome and so much fun. But I also see so much value in multi-generational worship. Like we don't do it ever, like ever. And Christmas is like the easiest time to do it. So to be honest, we have not decided yet what we're going to do at East Cobb like this year. We don't know if we're going to offer kids ministry or if we're going to say, hey, everybody just come together as a family. We've had to do it as like a family-centered service the last 3 years because we just didn't have a way to do kids ministry in the venues that we were renting. So it's kind of a tension that I'm feeling. What we would do in the service, we would, again, we would give gift bags to every kid that walks in. So it would be, you know, full of snacks and little fidget toys and stuff like that, just to give them something to do. And they love that stuff, right? It's awesome. Last year we did this was really fun. We basically did like a little, I'd have to go back and look. I can't exactly remember how we did it, but basically like we had like 3 kids come on stage at the beginning of the service. We kind of had 2 hosts to get up there, and we had 2 kids come up on stage, and they were able to get a gift and take it to their parents. And it was a funny thing that we did. Basically, it was like something that was like, we kind of had pre-planned how it would work. But anyway, it made the audience laughed, no matter if you had kids or not. And the kids were engaged because they loved seeing other kids up there on stage, like doing something. And the whole thing lasted like 3 minutes, right? But it was like, we were able to engage the kids, and it didn't feel like we were doing something. The key to that, I think, is like, we're not doing something silly, right? We're not like, it's not like silly and goofy and like we're playing a game
Yeah,
and like
yeah.
adults are like, oh,
Okay.
this is weird. Like, but it was something that was kind of a game for a kid, and it lasted just long enough that it was, you know, nobody
Mhm.
really got annoyed by it. And also the result of it was
Yeah.
a parent of a kid got a gift that was kind of funny and it made people laugh. So yeah.
And when you say generational worship, are you saying that it's slightly different to Sundays, or that how, what could you explain?
Yeah,
What you mean?
yeah. So like a normal Sunday for us, there would be, it's really just adults in worship. So kids, you know, go to their environment, preschool, elementary's aged, middle school, like there are no, you know, I guess maybe some teenagers, but really all the teenagers, even the high school students, they're serving in these kids environments. So the majority of the people that come to our church or come into worship on a normal Sunday are adults, you know, maybe 20, whatever, and up. So there's just never a time that we have all these generations, kids, all through adults, all in the same room, all at the same time, because they're always on Sundays in their own environment. So I think it's valuable to do that. I mean, when I grew up as a kid, I remember going to church with my family and like sitting in worship with them. But that's the way that our church is structured. We don't do that. Every Sunday, your kids go to their kids' church and they do their kids' thing, and adults go to their church, the worship thing, and they do their thing. So I think it's, for us, it's a value add to like blend them together when we can. And Christmas is like an pretty easy way to do that, because, you know, even I was gonna say I think it was 2 years ago, we literally ripped footage from the Jesus Storybook Bible. Like they have the whole Jesus Storybook Bible, which is the kids version of the Bible. They have the whole thing like animated. And so I basically just took that and took the Christmas story, and we had our kids pastor read the Christmas story from the Jesus Storybook Bible, which honestly for adults is awesome, because it's like it makes sense, and it doesn't sound childish at all. It's just a really good way to do it. But we had on the video screen, we had like the animation kind of tracking along with it, which is really cool, because kids are then like watching this like animated thing while someone's reading the Christmas story. So that was kind of a way that we could, you know, again, we wanted people in the room who are not normally at church to get traditional things that they would do at Christmas at church. So reading the Christmas story is like one of the most basic ones. So we just took a minute and they read the Christmas story, but we read it from a kid's Bible. And the Jesus Storybook Bible is really, really good, really well written. And then we had an animated video to go along with it for kids to like be like, oh my gosh, look at that. So it was really, I think it like was a huge win. It like, again, it was, the whole thing was 5 minutes long, but it checked all these boxes for me that were like engaging kids, engaging adults, and it really like just giving an outsider a very simple thing that they've probably heard before, and or experiencing it in a new way.
Yeah, so good. Dan, one that's been a struggle for us as well, like a constant tension. But one of the things that we've started, and we're doing it again this year, is we find that the kids are super engaged for like the opening song, and then we'll do an element like John's just spoken about, where like we do a video of them telling a Christmas story and it's fun. Or last year we did like a kind of like a finish the lyrics sort of thing, and that everybody loved. And then the kids actually then left and went out to a Christmas party, and they got to meet Father Christmas and get a photo op and stuff like that. That works really, really well, other than the seating is a nightmare, because, you know, all the kids are in from the start and then half the seats are empty. But that's one thing that we've kind of found, and I'm not saying that's the answer, but it's definitely been a cool thing to experiment with. Right, we'll just we'll go to Dan. Hey Dan, I don't think we've met. Good to see you over in Bristol, right?
Yes, that's right. With Elim Pentecostal Church in Bristol.
Right.
Yes, my question would be, we talked about multi-generational. Our church is also very multicultural. So yeah, we have congregation members from like many of the African nations, from the Caribbean, from across Europe. And something we've kind of been talking about but haven't really come to any conclusions is, do we do some stuff to try and introduce elements from other cultures' Christmas traditions as well as the UK or America in your case? So yeah, I don't know if anyone's got any experience of kind of church, if your church is like that, or if you've dealt with that kind of thing in the past, and just any tips on that one.
That's a great question. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't, we, where we are is it's not very multicultural. And I would say, I mean, it's a bit of a tension even on Sundays sometimes. Just here in America, like the white and black culture, and the differences there, like trying to even take some of like what you would experience in an African American church, predominantly black, church, and like the style of music that you would experience there is very different than what you would experience in predominantly white church. And so trying to blend those two things together. And I think also just having the culture represented on the platform is helpful, right? So really leaning into, if you have, like, one of our campuses has a lot of Hispanic people that go to their church, live in their church, or live in the area. And they live in the area, but they weren't coming to their church. And it's because the majority of people that they ever saw leading from the platform were not Hispanic. They were white people that just, you know what I mean? And so they started leaning into that and trying to figure out, well, how do we reach these people? So over the last several years, they've been training up worship leaders and musicians that are Hispanic. And now they have this whole like Hispanic thing that they do, and, sing in Spanish and the whole thing. And it's amazing. But it's because I think, people started coming because they see themselves in, who's leading the way. So I think if you can figure out a way to do that, it's hard when it's really, really multicultural. But if you can figure out a way to allow people to see themselves represented some way in your service, I think that's very beneficial for sure.
Yeah, so good. Aaron, have you got something to add to that, bro?
It was just great to hear what John just said, because I mean, we are a black-led church, pretty much Nigerians. But what's helped is because I've got two things. I've got a female white keyboardist. So literally, and we're very intentional in that presentation. So even where I have backup singers, you don't see the backup singers in our recordings. So literally what you ever see in our church and our regular Sunday services, this black guy who's preaching or singing, but there's always a female white keyboardist. So what we hear from everywhere is, how do you have a white keyboardist? How do you have a female keyboardist? So that attracts people. Then when you walk into church, you just see all these black people in church.
Yeah.
So what you put on stage is very intentional.
Yeah.
And what we're finding out, we're having, like, the kids, the children's ministry at the moment, we have about 3, we're very intentional about it. We have about 3, the mentors, we call them mentors. We actually pay them on Sunday to come mentor our children. So parents come in, and so they're able to see that mix because of where we're trying to go, cross-cultural. So we're very intentional in making sure that we have that feel in church.
So good. Thanks, Aaron, for that. I'd love to wrap up just so wary of everyone's time. But John, before we go, would you mind praying for us?
Oh yeah, I would love to.
That'd be great. Thanks so much, bro.
For sure. Father, we're really grateful for what you have, called us to, and allow us to be involved in your kingdom. I don't know why. I don't know why you chose to use broken, messed up people to build your church and to lead your churches. But I'm really grateful that you did, and that you've invited us into that. And so for every person that's thinking about what can we do? How can we, make Christmas feel special? I pray that you would help us stay humble in it. I pray that you would help us remember that this is not about making our church look awesome, but it's about making Jesus known. And whatever we can do to point people to him is ultimately our goal and our hope. And everything that we do it with such sincere hearts of just wanting so desperately for people to walk into our rooms and our spaces and our buildings, and to immediately feel the power of the Holy Spirit. And I think it's something that people who are walking in, they maybe have never felt it before. They don't understand it. They can't explain it. But as soon as they walk in, they feel the power of the Holy Spirit. And that in every part of our services, that Jesus is made known, and that the accessibility that we have as people, as humans, to Jesus, to his grace, to his mercy, to his love, that would be made known. And I pray for a fresh wind of creativity for all of us, that you would just breathe creative ideas. And I love getting to this point of going, well, I don't know what we're going to do, because it's in those moments that I have to lean on, and I have to really tap into the power of the Spirit that dwells within me. And so for anybody that's feeling behind the 8 ball and kind of not sure what we're going to do and how we're going to do it, should we do kids ministry, should we not, all those things, I just pray that that we would begin to really start leaning into and praying those specific prayers, that logistics would work out, that we would have answers to things that we have questions around, and that your Spirit would actually start showing up in ways that we're like, oh, that has to be the hand of God at work in our churches. And for creative ideas that again, don't make us look good, but make Jesus known. That's our hope in all of it. So I'm really thankful for the ability and time that we have to get together and to talk about this stuff, and to know that we're not alone in what we're doing. It's really cool to know that across the world, we're all trying to think of ways to lead people into your life-changing presence. And so we just ask that you would help us and lead us in that. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thanks so much, John. We're praying for you for launch in November.
Yeah.
Let's
Thanks,
see how you
guys.
get on. And I'll be in touch with the rest of you guys soon. Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, thank you all. Appreciate it.
See you
Thank
soon.
you.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.